If you only watch the first minute of this video, you could still end up trusting the exact kind of man who will cost you your peace. And I don't mean just heartbreak, I mean the kind of slow, quiet damage that shows up later, when your home no longer feels like your home, when your weekends don't feel restful anymore because you're managing someone's moods, needs, and crises like it's a second job. Because in your later years, the stakes change. At 25, a bad relationship can waste your time. At 65, a bad relationship can rearrange your entire life. And the most dangerous part? Sometimes it's not the loud, obvious villain. Sometimes it's the man everyone praises. He's such a gentleman, so helpful, so charming. Even your friends might say, "You're so lucky." Until one day you realize he has access to your money, your space, your decisions, and you're the one apologizing for wanting basic respect. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 types of men senior women must never trust, especially if you value your independence. And at the end, I'll give you one single sentence you can say early on that makes any man reveal himself, not through what he promises, but through how his nervous system reacts when you hold your ground. I've seen too many senior women believe they've found companionship, only to realize they've invited emotional chaos into a life they worked decades to build. At this stage of life, peace isn't a luxury. It's survival. So let's talk about the first type of man you must never trust. The first type of man is what I call the king of the world, a grandiose narcissist. On the surface, he looks like the answer to a prayer you stopped saying out loud. Confident, charming, put together, maybe successful. And when he locks onto you, it doesn't feel casual. It feels deliberate, like a spotlight finally landed on you again. He says things that hit a very tender place, not just, "You look nice." He says, "You're not like other women your age." He says it like you're rare, like you're a secret he discovered. That attention can feel like oxygen. It can feel like being chosen again after you assumed that part of life was over. Here's the brutal truth. He isn't falling in love with you. He's falling in love with what you reflect back to him. A grandiose narcissist doesn't see a partner. He sees a mirror that can keep his self-image alive. Your admiration becomes his emotional fuel. Your awe becomes his stability. And that means the relationship is never really about closeness. It's about supply. This is why it follows a predictable psychological arc. At first, he idealizes you. He overwhelms you with warmth, intensity, focus. Your nervous system starts associating him with aliveness. Your brain starts thinking, maybe this is it. And then comes the shift, subtle enough that you blame yourself. Let me tell you about Eleanor. She was in her late 60s, widowed, finally steady again. When she met him, he revived something in her, calls every day, flowers, dinners, big lines like, "You brought me back to life." Eleanor felt bright again. Then he began reshaping her. He commented on her clothes, framed as, "I just want you to look elegant." He got irritated when she spent time with her grandchildren, like her love belonged to him now. And when she questioned his tone, he didn't argue like a normal man. He destabilized her reality. "You're overreacting. You're too sensitive." That's not a disagreement, that's psychological control. It trains you to distrust your own perception, and then the most addictive part, he disappears, just long enough for your anxiety to spike, just long enough for your mind to chase the early version of him. Then he returns with one romantic gesture, sweet enough to reset your hope. That cycle isn't romance, it's conditioning. So here are the early warning signs. He talks about himself constantly, but stays strangely vague about you. He moves fast, future plans, big promises, talk of merging lives before trust exists. And the moment you introduce boundaries, he becomes sulky, offended, or cold. Now ask yourself honestly, in your last connection, did you feel expanded or managed? Because a safe man doesn't need you smaller, only a king of the world does. And the next type of man looks like the opposite, humble, wounded, safe. That's exactly why he's so convincing. He doesn't show up like a king, he doesn't posture, he doesn't need to look impressive. He shows up suffering, his voice is softer, his eyes look tired, his story is heavy. And within the first few conversations, you're already hearing the same themes. The ex-wife who ruined him, the children who don't appreciate him, the world that never gave him a fair chance. At first, your heart goes out to him, because you're not cruel, you're not cold, you're a mature woman who has spent a lifetime carrying people through hard seasons. This is the poor me man, the vulnerable, covert narcissist. And the reason he's so dangerous is because he doesn't hook you with power, he hooks you with pity. Let me show you how it works. I once worked with a woman I'll call Ruth. Ruth met him at a senior social group. Nothing dramatic, just coffee and conversation. He was quiet, polite, almost shy. He felt safe. Over coffee, he told her he didn't need much, just someone who understands him. Then the sadness came out. He talked about how his last partner used him, how his adult kids rarely call, how loneliness had been eating at him for years. Ruth listened. She encouraged him. She invited him into her world, little by little. And for a while, she felt like she was doing something beautiful, helping a wounded man feel human again. Then the shift began. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't obvious control. It was emotional pressure disguised as fragility. If she made plans without him, his voice would drop. I guess you don't really have time for me anymore. If she didn't pick up right away, he'd sound hurt. I knew it. I'm not important. If she asked for space, he'd go quiet for a day or two, just long enough to make her feel anxious, guilty, and responsible. Soon, Ruth found herself scanning his mood before she made decisions. She started choosing words carefully so he wouldn't misunderstand. She began shrinking normal needs, rest, solitude, family time, because every boundary created a sad reaction she didn't want to deal with. That's the pattern. His emotions become the steering wheel of your life. Here's the brutal truth, and I want you to hear it clearly. This is not healthy vulnerability. This is victimhood used as a weapon. A mature man can share pain while still taking responsibility for himself. The covert narcissist does the opposite. He performs suffering to avoid accountability. He uses guilt to bend your boundaries. He makes you feel selfish for having needs because your needs threaten the role he wants you to play. And once you're trained to manage his feelings, he has control without ever raising his voice. So watch for the warning signs. His stories always end with him as the victim and someone else as the villain. Self-care starts to feel like cruelty in your own mind. Money enters the picture through hints. Things are tight. I'm behind this month. I hate asking. So you offer help before he even asks. That's how your empathy gets turned into a leash. If you've ever felt like you became the therapist, the nurse, the bank, and the emotional sponge for a man who rarely asked, "How are you really?" You may have met this type, and now we go to the third type, the man who doesn't just drain your emotions, tries to quietly own your life. He doesn't arrive with chaos, he arrives with competence. He looks responsible, steady, even protective. He doesn't overwhelm you with romance or pity. He offers something that feels far more reassuring: help. This is the quiet predator, the malignant controller. And the reason he's the most dangerous is simple. By the time you realize what's happening, he's already inside your life. This man understands something very important about women in later life. After decades of carrying everything yourself, help feels like relief. When he says, "Let me handle that," your body relaxes. When he insists on driving you to appointments, fixing things around the house, or paying for dinner, it feels like support. But here is the truth most women never hear. Helping is the bait. Power is the goal. Care can be a disguise. Control loves to dress like protection. I once worked with a woman I'll call Claire. She was widowed, living in her own home, financially stable, but careful. Not wealthy, just independent. When she met him, he didn't sweep her off her feet. He impressed her with reliability. He fixed things around the house without being asked. He drove her to medical appointments. He insisted on paying when they went out. He said things like, "You shouldn't have to deal with all this paperwork at your age, and I hate seeing people take advantage of you." At first, it felt like relief, like she could finally rest. Then the isolation began. Quiet comments slipped in. Her daughter only calls when she needs something. Her friends don't really check on her the way he does. Each comment was framed as concern, never as control. Slowly, Claire started sharing less with the people who had known her longest. Next came what I call convenience entanglement. He suggested putting his name on an account just in case of an emergency. He had access to her cards to help with errands. He offered to review bills and online banking. He encouraged her to update her will to make things simpler. Everything was presented as practical, responsible, loving. And then Claire tried to say no. That's when the mask slipped. Sometimes he exploded with anger, accusing her of mistrust. Other times he went silent for days, leaving her anxious and unsettled. The message was clear without being spoken. Resistance has consequences. Over time, Claire became afraid of upsetting him. Decisions that used to be simple began to feel dangerous. She started checking with him first. She felt watched, managed, handled. That is ownership. So pay attention to these warning signs. He pushes for access to your finances, documents, or home far earlier than makes sense. Your world slowly narrows as family and friends drift away under his influence. Help always comes with invisible strings attached. A sense of unease settles in your body, like you're being overseen instead of supported. And hear this clearly because it matters. If any part of you feels managed, that's not love, that's ownership. Love does not require surrendering your autonomy. Protection does not demand access to your life. If a man truly cares about you, your independence will not threaten him. Only a controller needs you dependent. And once you see this pattern, you can never unsee it. When a new connection feels intense, whether it's intense because he's charming, intense because he's suffering, or intense because he's so helpful, do one simple thing: pull back slightly, just enough to see what's real. Then introduce one clear, healthy boundary. Something ordinary. Something reasonable. Something that protects your peace. You can say, "I like you, but I move slowly," or "I need regular time alone and time with my family," or even, "I'm not comfortable talking about money, sex, or future plans this early." And then you stop talking, because the test isn't in your explanation. The test is in his reaction. A trustworthy man won't need a debate. He may be surprised, but he adjusts. He respects your pace. He doesn't try to pry open your boundary like it's a door he deserves access to. A toxic man tells on himself the moment he hears the word no. Some will push back with charm, as if your boundary is negotiable if they smile harder. Others will twist it into an accusation like you're damaged, cold, or too sensitive. And some will go quiet in a way that makes you feel guilty for having needs at all. So here is the sentence I want you to memorize. It's simple, but it's powerful because it forces clarity. This is important to me, and I'm not willing to change it. How do you feel about that? Use it for anything that matters. Your family time, Your home, your money, your health decisions, your spiritual life, your independence. And watch what happens. Your job is not to argue. Your job is to notice. Because any man who is truly safe will respect your limits without punishment. Only the dangerous ones get angry when you protect yourself. Senior woman, hear me clearly. You're not too old to be loved well, and you're not too old to be targeted. Men like this are often drawn to what you've earned the hard way, your kindness, your loyalty, your stability, your life experience. They don't come because you're weak. They come because you're valuable, and they're hoping your desire for one last great love will make you silence that quiet inner warning. But your intuition isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. And if your mind keeps making excuses, your body will tell the truth first. That tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your stomach, the way your shoulders rise when his name appears on your phone. Your body notices danger long before your heart is ready to admit it. So let this be your anchor. A safe man won't be offended by your boundaries. He'll respect you for having them. If this helped you, comment one word: boundary. And if you want more conversations like this, real, protective, and honest, subscribe. Your peace is worth guarding.